And tonight, we're hours away from Joe Biden addressing the world for the first time since quitting the presidential race. But today, all eyes were on Kamala Harris. And the question many are asking, can she beat Donald Trump? And what would she be like as Madam President? The media and political elite who lied about Biden's mental decline are now presenting Kamala Harris as the Messiah. The deliberate cover-up of Biden's cognitive decline has now been clearly exposed. While voters were told he was sharp as a tack and the clips were all deep fakes, Nancy Pelosi stopped his contact with Democratic caucus and his own team limited his FaceTime with cabinet secretaries. Democrats were in fact highly concerned about his ability to fulfill basic tasks like reading teleprompters. Yet here's what voters were told.
President Biden, who I've been around numerous times just in this last year, is sharp, he's focused, he's bright.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
He's smart, he's on his game.
This same group who lied about Joe Biden are now throwing their support behind Kamala Harris. They're papering over her policy failures and history of incompetence as vice president and embracing her with excitement.
That is fighting Kamala Harris. She is coming out guns blazing.
People have been thirsting for this.
Kind of fell in love with her. I thought she was smart, engaging. She's funny, feisty, twinkle in your eye, punch you in the gut. I mean, everything you kind of want. I just thought it was a great, great opening act.
The words she was speaking, they felt organic and genuine.
But there is cause for concern. Already as the presumptive nominee, Kamala Harris looks set to snub Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's address to Congress. And this is a worrying sign for Israel should she become president. The Wall Street Journal reports that the snub is unmistakable and that it's fueling rumours of a rift between her and Biden's approach to the Middle East. Columnist Walter Russell-Mead writes that rightly or wrongly, key Arab leaders may interpret her snub of Netanyahu as evidence that Harris sympathises with the opponents of a Saudi treaty and that her Middle East policy will differ significantly from Biden's. He says that in turn would make it harder for Biden negotiators to get to yes, either about a Gaza ceasefire or on the final details of the Saudi deal. It may also encourage the Iranians, sensing weakness and division within the administration, to turn up the heat on Biden, increasing the chance of a shooting war in the Gulf. And Walter Russell-Mead says that Kamala Harris is in the big leagues now and she needs to get this right. He says the world will be watching. But surely no one serious has any confidence that Kamala Harris could hope to land a successful Middle East foreign policy position when she couldn't even get a handle on the southern border, when national security officials have already had to intervene to tone down critical remarks about Israel that she planned to make in a major speech, and that's according to an NBC News report. When less than a month after October 7, she called for a national strategy, not on anti-Semitism, but on Islamophobia.
I am proud to announce the Biden-Harris administration will develop our nation's first national strategy to counter Islamophobia.
As I said, less than a month after October 7. And despite the fact there was an anti-Semitism crisis raging unchecked. It's highly doubtful Kamala Harris has the ability, skills or expertise to negotiate Middle East policy. And tonight on my show, I've asked Mike Pompeo's chief advisor when he was Secretary of State to come on live to speak about this. Already, Kamala has been thoroughly exposed for her failures while in the VP job. Her role was to fix the immigration crisis. Yet, under her watch, more than 8 million illegals crossed the border. And thanks to her, the border crisis has become one of the top reasons that voters are supporting Trump. For this, and other reasons, she was considered a liability. The media tore her to pieces, as exemplified by this famous interview.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, you know, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe.
Well, even Nancy Pelosi hasn't been able to defend Kamala's failings as VP.
Do you think she is the best running mate, though?
She's the vice president of the United States. So when people say to me, well, why isn't she doing this or that? I said, because she's the vice president. That's the job description. You don't do that much.
But the same left media that lied about Biden's cognitive decline are now trying to brush past Kamala's flaws, even though they reported on them in the past. And overnight, she's become a media darling, and they're redefining her. But does anyone really buy it?
There she is, ready to be the president.
Kamala Harris is unleashed. She's just brilliant. She's just, the energy that's coming off of her is the energy that's coming off of the American people.
Just in the last 48 hours, she's been more forward-leaning just on the issue of abortion, frankly, than President Biden had been over the last 4 months. And then you throw in, she's more comfortable at going after the convictions on Trump.
She became the presumptive nominee in 48 hours. To put that in perspective, it's been more than 3 years and we still don't have a new James Bond.
Well, fickle celebrities who just a minute ago were standing by Biden are now endorsing Kamala. And she's raised an impressive $100 million since Sunday. At her first campaign event today, she launched a scathing attack on Trump.
I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
And meanwhile, the man who the entire Democratic Party now acknowledge is not fit to serve another 4 years as president is still apparently equipped to be the leader of the free world for another 6 months. It's an absurd situation, as Piers Morgan pointed out today.
I just find it completely incomprehensible that the President of the United States announces on social media, not to the American people, because 80% of people are not on social media, but he just announces suddenly, oh, by the way, I'm not physically capable of continuing the next 4 months of this presidential race. But the good news is I am going to carry on running the country and be the leader of the free world, even though I can barely construct a sentence or stay on my 2 feet without falling over. It is a completely farcical situation.
Well, just who led the way pretending Biden was on top of his game? Kamala Harris, of course.
We have a very bold and vibrant president in Joe Biden.
And in Joe Biden, we have a president who is probably one of the boldest and strongest American presidents we have had in his response to the needs of the American people.
But he is an extraordinary leader, and I wish that people could see what I see, because there's only one person who sits behind that resolute desk.
But don't expect the cheerleading journalists to grill her on why she repeatedly lied about Biden's cognitive ability or examine her policy positions. Because just like we saw with the Hunter Biden laptop story, which was dismissed as Russian disinformation, partisan politics has sadly corrupted journalism in America. Even when we could all see with our own eyes that Biden was incoherent and rambling, the White House insisted the vision were deep fakes, and journalists didn't lift a finger to investigate. Ideological narratives took preference over facts, and the retrospective exposés now being written are too little, too late. And none of this serves democracy.